Moshe in Israel with an update on what's going on in the Middle East. In a nutshell, it's about to light up and very quickly, hours or days, not weeks. The Americans hit 60 or so targets along with the UK, although it was mostly America by far. The UK had some Typhoon jets, and they didn't do much, but they joined in probably more for tokenism than anything else. And they hit some targets in the Houthis, and the Houthis are adamantly stating they're going to retaliate for the attack. And, I live in the Middle East. I live in Israel, actually, not any other country in the Middle East, for quite a few years, and I can tell you that this is going to happen. I don't say it's 98%, it's 100%. Unless God supernaturally stops them, they're going to intervene. And what are some of the things they could do? Well, many of the internet cables run around the Yemen shoreline, and they threaten to cut the cables. Will they do it at this time? I don't think so, but they could. It's very easy to cut these cables. They're not that deep. They're maybe 200, maybe 300 feet down. They just send divers. It's easy. A diver with a hatchet could cut it. All right, and that probably also means the SWIFT cables will get cut too, so international wire transfers will be greatly impeded. Internet around the Middle East and will be greatly affected. Israel is up by the Mediterranean. It's probably going to be affected, but not that seriously. Some of the African countries, most definitely India, will be severely affected, and so forth. All right. The other things the Houthis can do, let me run them down for you, okay? America says they hit their radar installations. Great. Did they hit them all? I don't know. Do I think they did? No. The Houthis can continue to fire missiles at the ships going near Yemen as they go through that pincher point to go up the Red Sea into the Suez Canal and out the Mediterranean. They can and most likely will start laying naval mines in the waters, which is going to make it, well, 90% of the shipping stop. Probably now it's at about 100%, but they're going to ensure that it stays at over 90% no shipping by using naval mines. They could have mines below the surface, on the surface. I don't know exactly what mines they have and what they're going to use, but they have them. And they're probably going to put, hundreds of them up all through the Red Sea. So then the Americans and the British will bring minesweepers in and start going to work on removing the mines, and they'll try to shoot at the minesweepers and all this madness. Okay. Will maritime vessels get blown up by the mines? No, because they're not going to be there. They won't go there. Okay? Egypt will be losing 20% of their national income because all the shipping will stop, and they're not going to be happy, but I don't think they're going to do anything. They'll complain. Iran, the IRGC, said they're going to be expanding their activities in the Persian Gulf, which dumps into the Sea of Oman, and then it continues to the Indian Ocean. So they're going to be attacking vessels. Iran is sticking their toe in the water slightly right now to see what kind of responses they're going to get. And they're going slowly, but now they're going to accelerate. Attacking Iran will be more futile than attacking the Houthis. The Houthis got to have tunnels and underground bunkers, and they've got to have a lot of their resources, military and otherwise, hidden. The Yemen army with the Houthis runs at about 200,000. The Hamas with PIJ, before they got obliterated, ran about 50,000. They probably lost 5,000 of their people, or maybe less. They're still viable, but not very. Hezbollah can likely up the attacks. They're already hitting American bases in Iraq and Syria after the attack. That's going to increase. The Houthis can hit Saudi Arabia, which they've done in the past with missiles, and they've taken out in the last year or so the Aramco oil facility 2 times, which Saudi had to rebuild. That will, now they've hit it each time they hit it with, I think, 1 or 2 missiles. If they hit it with 15 or 20 missiles, it's going to take weeks or months to rebuild it. If they hit it good enough, it won't get rebuilt. It won't be worth it. They have other oil refineries and facilities in Saudi Arabia that could be hit also. They could invade Saudi Arabia. That's a dangerous move, but they could do it. They'll continue to use drones, which don't require radar, to attack whatever vessels they want to attack in the Red Sea. They can and will use naval drones, which they have, to attack ships or warships or merchant marine ships, whatever they want to go after. They have, basically, if it gets reduced to it, they just put 5 or 6 of their soldiers in these small boats that are probably modified fishing boats. Oh, they might be 30, 40 feet long, and they're exposed, they don't have coverage, And they could go after ships with a multitude, AK-47s, shoulder-fired rockets, immature RPGs that are armor-piercing, that'll cause tremendous damage to ships, and try to hijack ships and take them back to Yemen. I don't think they'll be successful in the hijacking because the Americans will launch aircraft and helicopters, etc., to rescue the ship. If they manage to board the ship before the American planes get there, then it gets very dicey as to what happens. They can hit the UAE, they can hit Bahrain. They are probably not going to hit Qatar. They can hit the Sea of Oman, the Kingdom of Oman. There's a lot of things they can do. Okay, Iraq is demanding the Americans get out of Iraq, and that, of course, is going to blow up. Iraq could also join Iran and attack shipping in the Persian Gulf. You should plan on seeing a lot of shipping in the Persian Gulf be diminished, if not all of it. Well, there's countries friendly with Iran that they won't bother, like Russia, China probably. India's not on their hit parade list, so they'll bother India. There'll be tremendous disturbances around the world, protests and demonstrations and minor riots and stuff about the Houthis getting picked on. The Americans said that if the Houthis stop, this is the first and last attack. The Houthis will not stop. They've already said that they're going to expand their efforts to fight against America and Britain. Now, they might fight against America and UK interests around the world. We don't know. They've got resources. They got 40 million people. There's 2.5 million people living in Gaza. So just to give you the perspective, are they as crazy as Hamas? Every single bit as crazy as Hamas. There's no difference. They're the same thing. They're cut out of the same cloth. So in the coming hours and days, you're going to see the Middle East light up. There's not a lot the Houthis can do against Israel at this time. To get to Israel, like deploy 20,000 troops that they said they're training to attack, to help Hamas in Gaza. How are they going to get there? They need the help of Saudi Arabia, who does not seem at this point in time crazy enough to let 20,000 of their soldiers pass through Saudi Arabia. Then comes Egypt, and I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Could they move 20,000 soldiers by boat? Nah. Israel would sink the boats with their submarines. They're not going to do that. So the targets are predominantly Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, possibly UAE and Oman, and it's going to get pretty ugly. Iran's not going to just sit still. They're going to start escalating, and Hezbollah will escalate, and I don't think Hamas has any ability to escalate. Jordan is going to sit back and watch. Remember, Edom in these days gets destroyed, and Edom is in northwest Saudi Arabia in reality. Yemen, biblically speaking, is Sheba. In Hebrew, they use the word Teman, or Taman, for Yemen, which means south. So you're going to see things light up rather quickly, okay? Most of the people that are doing news stories and social media do not understand the Middle East. They don't understand the extremely radical Muslim terrorist organizations, and they don't care about dying. So, because they're told by their religious leaders that if they participate in this military action and die, they'll be martyred and go straight to heaven with great rewards, virgins and otherwise. And they buy this and they operate as, according to this. So they're not that scared of dying. Muslims, like in Gaza, the Muslim mother, is glad the child died as a martyr. The child got killed by some fighting in Gaza, and they say the child's a martyr. The child wasn't fighting, it just got collateral damage, killed. This is what you're dealing with, okay? And these commentators on the social media don't understand any of this. They couldn't, okay? They don't get it, all right? And you're gonna start seeing more and more pressure against Israel. Remember, the Houthis and Hezbollah said they will stop if Israel stops attacking Gaza. The people in Gaza are in no way, shape, or form in the mood to stop attacking Gaza. They're in no way, shape, or form ever going to leave Hamas in Gaza, because it's just going to start up again 2 weeks or a month later. They're going to press their advantage. Okay? The United States may, and I expect, based on Bible prophecy, will turn against Israel. Okay? It says so in Jeremiah 50:51. They'll do evil. They've already done it. And every time you turn around, they want a two-state solution, which basically means we give the West Bank over to the Palestinians. They come from Gaza and they unify as one country, and they'll just turn Gaza, the West Bank, into a military camp like they did with Gaza, only it'll be 3 times worse for us. And we're not going to do that. Biden could bark at the moon all day long, and the people of Israel aren't going to do it. Now they're running polls to see how well Benny Gantz would do if he does a vote of no confidence against Netanyahu. So it appears to me Biden's had it with Netanyahu. Netanyahu talks out of both sides of his mouth. He tell Biden one thing because that's what Biden wants to hear. Then he gets political pressure from the people in Israel, and he switches positions to make them happy and leaves Biden in the lurch. And I think Biden's had his fill of it. And Gantz, when Blinken was here, he met with Gantz privately. And I think that you'll see America support Gantz doing a vote of no confidence against Netanyahu when he gets removed, and then his criminal cases will accelerate, and he could wind up in prison. People in Israel are fed up with Netanyahu. The war is going way too slow. The hostages haven't been recovered. There doesn't seem to be anything resembling realistic talks to get a ceasefire going with Gaza. And the demands from Hamas are absurd, and Israel's not going to comply. They involve you withdraw everybody for your troops from Gaza, and then we'll start trickling the hostages back to you and that kind of thing. Well, by the estimates of the missing people from the October 7th attack, combined with the serious efforts to find remains of the people and taking the remains away from those that are missing, taking away the hostages that were returned from those that are missing, and so forth, they come up with a speculative figure of 136 hostages. But we do not know. Nobody, probably Hamas, doesn't even know how many of those are alive. They've embedded the hostages in people's apartments and hospitals, and they're spread out all over Gaza. There's no chance of a rescue effort getting a substantial or even a minimal amount of them back. In other words, special forces kicking the doors and stuff is just going to result in a very small hostage recovery, and then they may start assassinating the hostages. The hostages, the females that are probably under age 45 or 50 or whatever, have, according to the hostages that are released, have been suffering sexual abuse continually. And that's a horrible thing when you think about it. So if they come back, they're not going to be in great psychological condition, one would expect. But this is the Middle East is going to heat up. Don't think it's not. Okay, the only way the Houthis are going to stop is if America goes in on the ground and does a big invasion, and that way they could stop it. Just look at our problems in Hamas, and remember the Houthis are 3 times more powerful and larger and better equipped than Hamas, and believe they have underground bunkers and tunnels. Believe that Iran has them too. Believe Hezbollah has them too, and you won't be disappointed. The war with Hezbollah is continuing, but Hezbollah is showing a significant reluctance to want to get into anything beyond border skirmishes. In other words, if they start launching large amounts of missiles to Haifa, Tel Aviv, other big cities in Israel, I don't know how accurate these missiles are. I don't know how effective they'll be. There's a lot of talk about how many missiles they have, 150,000, 250,000. Look, I live here. The amount of missiles you have is not relevant. It's the amount of missile launchers you have. These sophisticated missiles go on a truck, okay? It's sort of like a flatbed pulled by a tractor trailer, and it has one launcher on it, and they're substantial. So they could drive around with this thing and relocate it rather easily. But it's heavy and big, and it's not the kind of thing you're going to drive around in the bramble bushes. You possibly could drive it on a gravel road, possibly on a dirt road if it's hard, not full of mud. And of course, concrete roads and blacktop and stuff like that. But just driving around like a tank, in the wild, it won't do it. It's got very low clearance. Of course, it's sort of like a low boy. It's not going to work. So how hard would it be for planes to find these things and pick them off? Well, when they launch, the Americans, the British, the Israelis have precise GPS coordinates where the launch site was. So they get the missile set up. The truck has its own power generator. They probably evacuate the cab of the truck just in case. And they go 100 feet away or something like that, and remote by wire or wireless detonate, or launch the missile. And then after the missile is launched, they gotta go and jump back in the truck and drive the heck out of there before missiles land on that site, or artillery, or both, or drones, or jets, or helicopters. It's not easy. And how far can that truck go? I mean, if they have jets in the air, the jets can be there if they, go supersonic in moments, and they'll start patrolling the area, and they'll find the truck. Then once they find the truck, they just get a radar lock on the truck, or use their guns or both or whatever, and just launch and blow the truck up. So you could have 5 million missiles, but it's how many missile launches you have. The immature missiles that are not aimable are very easy, like stovepipe launching ramps. It's very easy to make those. Okay? And they make those and they set them, and they have timers on them, and they can go perhaps 8 to 12 miles. They're very cheap, very easy to make, and the ground has the impact of, something like an RPG or a mortar or a smallish artillery cell. And they're dangerous, no doubt about it. Are they going to be able to use those to hit a ship in the water moving? No, they can't do that. But they can fire hundreds of missiles into Saudi Arabia that way. So the Saudis can defend themselves pretty okay, but not that okay. All right? If there's a fight between the Houthis and the Saudis, could the Houthis invade and occupy Saudi Arabia? It would be very doubtful. If the Houthis got a lot of help from Iraqi and Syrian militias and Hamas and Hezbollah, however they would get over there, I don't know. I'm talking, help in the area of, 20 and 40 and 50,000 people. They still probably couldn't overrun Saudi Arabia, but it would be an ugly battle. See, the Houthis are one of those terrorist states that have no air force and no navy to speak of. They don't have destroyers, submarines, missile cruisers. They don't have that stuff. They don't have any kind of an air force to speak of. They got some helicopters and old jets that are way, 4 or 5 generations behind or even more. So the American and British jets, the Typhoon jets, the F-35s, F-16s, just rip them out of the sky like child's play. So they've elected to do what? Well, they became a terrorist state and they go underground. They do tunnels and underground bunkers. How many people got killed in the raid? Like 5? So analyze this. They hit 60 plus targets. The Houthis said 73 were hit and 5 deaths and about the same amount of wounded. So what does that tell you? It tells you that 1 person got killed every 12 targets. So what kind of targets were the Americans and the Brits hitting anyway? If this was the case, abandoned targets? Well, what's up with that? Where were these people? They were probably in underground bunkers when the air raid began. Their radar probably, triggered sirens, and they went into tunnels and they went underground and they sustained. There were probably some that didn't do that and got hit as collateral damage. And maybe they were soldiers, I don't know. That's what happened. So it was, America's going to go back and do this again with the Brits and other countries, and again and again and again. And they're going to deploy more military assets to the region, more warships, more planes, more troops. They're going to threaten the Houthis with invasion and every other crazy thing. And the Houthis are going to keep going. Look at Gaza. It's almost 100 days old, and they're still not giving up. The Houthis are going to be the same way, but 3 times tougher. Okay? Now, South Africa took us to the the ICJ, International Criminal Justice Court, whatever they call it, which Israel is not a party to, so it's not binding by their decisions. But other countries are parties, so if they find Israel guilty, they could create a list of 25 or 100 Israeli military, Shin Bet, Mossad, government officials, and put them in as genocidal people, maniacs. They would call us, and they could have red alerts, which is like an arrest warrant in the countries that are in the ICJ treaty. So if they travel to one of those countries, they could be apprehended. So this is, of course, a great problem for these generals and intelligence people and politicians. They could put the whole Knesset in there. I don't know. But they can't come into Israel and, yank them out. I mean, they would have to attack Israel to do that, and I don't think we're anywhere near there, but we might get there. These court decisions against Israel as genocide could turn America away from Israel, but I doubt it. America's not in the ICJ treaty either, so the chances of them turning against, in favor of the ICJ are pretty dismal. Egypt, India, America, Israel, and several other countries are not in, big countries. China is not in it. I don't know about Russia. I don't think Russia's in it, no. So they're not going to, it doesn't have, it has a few teeth, but not a lot of teeth. It doesn't have a mouthful of teeth. So it's an annoyance, and you will see America turn against Israel. It's in Bible prophecy, Jeremiah 50:51. And you're also going to see the Middle East light up, and it could be the world. Russia may see this as a goal when America gets embedded fighting the Houthis, and America may escalate to fighting more aggressively in Lebanon against the Hezbollah, and they might get more aggressive against the Iraqi and Syria militias in Syria and Iraq. I mean, seriously aggressive, because the bases are going to be getting hit way more, and bring more and more military and military equipment and stuff into the area. The Persian Gulf may pick up as Iran with the IRGC expands their activities in the Persian Gulf, Sea of Oman, Indian Ocean. They might deploy, 12 or 15, 20 ships to the Persian Gulf, Sea of Oman, Indian Ocean. So India is also going to grind an axe with the Houthis. They may do them on separate attack because they're ticked. Because ships are getting hit in the Indian Ocean and it's affecting India economically. So they may decide they want to do their own independent attack. It could happen. France, I think, is laying low, but there's going to be a time when they're going to have to take sides. The Iranians have threatened to close the Mediterranean Sea from the Atlantic by using Morocco and Algiers to close the Straits of Gibraltar, which is a very, very, very narrow passageway that's used to go from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. And I expect they'll eventually move to closing that and the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. And not only will that spike oil prices and food prices, it's also going to cause famine because, well, I don't want to get into that here. I covered that on my morning broadcast. But the Panama Canal is all disconglomerated. There's backlog of months. And the Chinese, Russia, North Korea, Iran have troops in Nicaragua, which is very close to the Panama Canal. And the Panama Canal does not have any military. So it's easy to overrun it. It'd take 2 or 3 hours. And that will cause ships to have to go around South America. And that increases food prices and everything else prices. So things are getting very, very hot right now. And this thing with the Houthis is going to go fast. What the Houthis want, what Hezbollah wants, is they want Gaza, Hamas to stay in Gaza, be left alone, and rebuild and kill more Jews another day down the road. And that's their goal. Okay? And I guess that's about it. So you could see China hit Taiwan, North Korea hit South Korea, and Russia start hitting countries like Poland and Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, Norway, and Georgia, and who knows what else. Okay, Belarus would join in, and they're gonna interpret, China and Russia will interpret this as a golden opportunity. If they see America get severely entrenched, America does not have enough military resources in the Pacific region to sustain a full attack from China and North Korea hitting South Korea. They don't have it. And they don't have the military resources in Europe to sustain an attack from Russia on small defenseless countries like Finland and Norway and stuff like that. Poland's not defenseless, but Russia could nail them. It would take losses and stuff, but they could do it. And when they hit Poland, the flow of weapons into Ukraine stops because that's how they bring them in. So then they can gain more victory in Ukraine. So if America is otherwise occupied, it's their golden opportunity. The amount of naval and air resources in the Pacific region are far from enough to keep China and North Korea together at bay. They can't. So you could see the whole world go up very quickly, too. Very quickly. China has offered to negotiate peace. Well, who's taking them seriously? Nobody. You know. And that's basically what I got for this. So there you go. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.